It's hard when you're not making an eye contact to a human, you're making eye contact to a lens. Hi, welcome back. It's Monday. How's it going? The weekend's over, or for some people it never stopped. No, that's weird because it would be the week. Never mind, let's not do that. I am 38 years old, or 40, or 2 years from 40, as I tell Taylor, my wife. We have two children. We have Enzo, who is our 2-year-old. We have Logan, who is our 9-year-old. We have Wiley that lives here that's like a parasitic dog that he's empty inside, but he just walks around and loves on you and kind of barks. But it's like something else is living in there. What I was going to say is, over the years, things change. You know, I always preach to people about having kids and how it's a whole nother chapter of your life. It's like you get a book with life and all these different chapters and things you go through and experiences, and then you legitimately get a whole nother book, and everything turns when you have kids into revolving around them. And a lot of it too is not sweating the small shit, like fuck off with a lot of stuff, you know, like you start to live for a different purpose and you live to share things with them, and your sense of being and your purpose in life changes. And Logan's here today, and I want you guys just to see him and meet him. He's my sand crab number 2 of 1 and 2, because Enzo's kind of the smaller one. Logan, come here. Sean's here. So that's Logie. Just give me a hug and we're good. Let's see if I pick him up and I embarrass him. I knew I'd get him. So anyways, we're gonna do the Frontier. Let's do it. So what I want to do here is just show you, I think we talked about, well, I know we talked about running a winch on this thing, having the winch be something where it mounts to the side of the chassis, it lives in the back, adds weight to the rear. It's a mid-cell car, so having all the weight, you know, as much as we can kind of shift into the back behind the axle as we can, we'll do. 2 spares back there, the jack is back there, and now this winch is kind of on the opposing side of the jack. So that helps that. Hey. The whole point was to be able to like take this thing off the side of the truck, and obviously it's not going to be the most ergonomic thing to do. Like if you're stuck and the truck's buried one way or another, you're probably not going to be stoked on having to pull the winch, and it might even be hard to do. But other ways to look at that is like if you know you're going somewhere, say you're pre-running in Mexico, and you just know there's going to be some tricky shit. You load this thing in the morning. You put the winch on. It lives in the front or it lives in the back, and it's already off the side of the chassis and it's ready to go. There will be terminals on each, 2 location here. I was going to say 3, but the side one is just it's just stationary. So there'll be terminals front and rear, and you'll just plug in, and then obviously like the remote for this thing, it runs off the winch. So that's just something that'll be in a bag in the car. This thing is on 3/4 pins. These are insanely strong. They're rubber coated. They're easy to get in and out. The system itself, we wanted to stress not having a trailer receiver like the donkey dick, thing that goes in where it's just like a square tube off the front of the rear of the truck. Like that is just not tasteful. And there's a nice way to do this because it really takes away, if you look at the back of a truck or something, it's got a big, nice system with tube work or whatever, and then it's like just a trailer receiver thing in there, there was another way that we could do that, and that's what we did. So what this is this is a system that's built into the mounting plate of the jack. The jack already came with that mounting plate, and then we just piggybacked off that with our structure here, and that just, all it is 2 pins. So we just have an area 1, 2, and 3 on the truck where we pull the pins, and this thing indexes in and locks back in. These guys, like I think you'd just call those body pins, or like a really large RC car hood pin. These will be on lanyards that live on this thing, so they won't get lost. This is kind of like a notorious item for just being lost on cars. But like the pins won't get lost, but at least these guys can be, you know, tied up to the structure, and then it'll live with it. It's all blown apart. I'm gonna take the time and just kind of put everything back together, because we got some serious wins here with sheet metal on the front. There's complete enclosure panels and like ducting panels in here. So I'll get the bumper back in, the bumper's fully welded, and we'll just go over the details like that. At this point, the truck is so close where it doesn't need to have like designated, let's do all the aluminum work, or let's work on, you know, this and jump. Like, I can just start combing through this thing front to rear and just say, okay, well, that's, you know, there's a lot of little loose ends. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at is it's just like little things where I want to be able to go through everything and just sign off. Okay, that's done. Oh, that wasn't welded. Weld that. Okay, that's not, we need to machine this part. Okay, and just start doing that from the front all the way to the back, because by the time I get to the back, I know the whole car's been gone through. Thank you. I love you. All right, so check this out. This was stuff we started. The Frontier is tricky. I don't want to get too much into like the personal details of that, but what I mean by that is I made a huge sacrifice with James to build this thing and finish it for him. I love James like a brother. My ADHD gets triggered with hammers and stuff. That's why I wear earbuds all day. I love James like a brother. I been doing this thing where it's not like we're not making any profits or anything. So it's really about like making time to do it, just where I can either pay one of my guys to do it, or I can do it on the weekends or something on spare time, because we can't, like, it's a sacrifice. But it's a sacrifice in a good way. It's a sacrifice, like I've said before, where I want to be able to lay in my grave and know that I helped him finish this thing, and I want to see this Frontier out there, and I want to do that for him and his family. I love James, I love his family. So dating back to that, that's why, like, it's just been spread out. It's taken years. Okay, cool. Some people take years to build stuff even when they're working on it full time. So we've done a hell of a lot, and I'm proud of everybody that's helped us on this thing, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to finish it. And we're like so close at this point where that's why we're not gonna keep pushing it off. It's just gonna be done. We're just gonna make forward progress. We've done enough with like Vivian and the Truggy, and really gotten our feet wet as far as final assembly, plumbing, making these things reliable, making them not have problems first time out, you know, and I feel confident with that. And now I also feel confident with just my knowledge base as far as getting through an entire build. This is the list I had from a while ago. I'm just leaving it out to kind of show that's parts. There's a lot more check marks on here than there is no check marks, and I think we have more. Winch mount side chassis. The only winch mount we don't have is the rear bumper one. All right, yeah, so we're danger close. I just wanted to get this. This is my refresh, but it's also just to show we've gotten a lot done. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna just go off my list. I am gonna walk through this whole thing front to rear, because I can just tell you where we've been at, and that's where I'm at with this thing anyways. I'm kind of watching this thing front to rear. So first foremost, Jesse Tyler came, he helped us with this bumper. Jesse, you're a bad dude. Jesse is an absolute master with radius tubes. I think he's just a master tuber, you know? And he helped with Vivian as well when Colin and him were constructing the cage on Vivian. So Jesse came, he helped with this bumper. Colin also helped finalize this thing, made like the Fairlead kind of protection tube in there, I guess you'd say. Did the valence. The whole thing was done root passed. I came through, final passed everything. And then there's an array of quarter turn fastener plates on here, or Zeus button plates. That stuff is all for our panel work. So the bumper itself is like this big structure. It obviously goes in with tube connectors. These tube connectors are the like index ones, the keyed ones, where they kind of, well, it's hard to show you because I need my other hand, but they cusp each other, and then they have hardware on the top and the bottom, so it's 4 bolts total holding this thing, and it's interlocked in the most important area. You can see this like floating bulkhead piece. This has a boss in it. This is actually just a solid chunk of aluminum, and that goes inside the bumper. There's another tube that sleeves over this, and that tube work sprawls out here, and then the bottom of the bumper, this is like the secondary push bar. The bottom of that goes into these bosses, which are just big chunks of chromoly machined. And you can just see all the final welding on this thing. Hopefully it's focusing. Something else I noted, so when this upper valence is off of the bumper, it's very flimsy in the middle parts. Like this just gets super narrow, and I could feel it like cracking. So this has a countersunk hole in here with rivets, just pop rivets, and that's holding aluminum strip back here. And that's just for protection. So then if this thing gets like rocks or any damage, it's not gonna just splinter that thing and make that thing turn into shards. Tin work, that was a big thing for the front. Like not just, it's obviously like a car that we're finishing here under Morgan Clarke Design, and we do, I think we're known for tin work on some vehicles and having like a special style and quality and design with all that. And so like it didn't make sense. I'm not gonna leave James out of that. And on top of that, the front radiator, like we wanted to do ducting, so I've got most of the front complete, and I've got it designed where it works with or without the hood on there. I don't think we're gonna put the hood on right now, but I'll at least show you like how it kind of encapsulates it. The other thing we talked about is like having a void. So instead of having like a grill here, you know, where the one piece, maybe we'll put it on. Yeah, we'll definitely put it on just so I can show you guys. But instead of having something where it's a grill, I wanted to have the mesh, the protection for like the fins of the coolers, set back in there where it adds like, you know, a void, like an opening. And it's the same with like the bedsides, that when we get the bedsides back, they have like a big opening going towards the shocks and towards the rear tire. And I think that having that like spatial awareness in a body, like where it has pockets like that, it makes the car more dimensional, and it makes it more of a 3D thing instead of just like a skin or a sheet over shapes. So something else that was important was running protection on this portion, clearing the hood hinges, and also having something where it's, if the bumper itself gets damaged, it doesn't affect some of the other panel work. So really I call that like doing modular panels, where there's portions that tie into the other portions, but you can just, instead of replacing all that, you just replace like the front areas. See what's going on here? This contour is the same contour when the front clip comes on. The front clip's got the grill opening here, And then it's got like your traditional Heritage hard body 3 oval cutouts. And all of that is complementing the flow, but this really just lays right on the fiberglass. The cut here is just to help the hinge program, because when this hood opens up, the fiberglass that's part of the outside of the grill here dives in. And so this is the clearance. Like usually you'd think you would want that shape to be drawn out all the way out here, but this is what's needed to actually facilitate the mechanism there. We're gonna leave it open just like this. If you get a tumbleweed or something in there, then clear it out, big deal. But it doesn't need to have any more provisions to act as like a grill shell or something like that. Another thing to know is all of the bumper being welded. So that was another thing I think that Jesse built. That's your pusher. That thing will probably live on the truck, but if you wanted to streamline the vehicle, you could just take that thing off and it would just be like a nice flush bumper, you know, like a radius bumper. So that complements everything going on here. And then the other thing we don't have in here is the LED bar. So there's a 30-inch Baja Designs that needs to live in here, and it'll just kind of be, you know, the tabs will probably go right to here. I'll have like something under the panel that sandwiches the panel, and then like a tab on top with a through bolt and a capture nut or a nut plate on the backside that elevates the bar, like the profile of the bar where it's stuck up and it's just across, so it kind of clears the lower portion of this grill. One of the biggest things with this truck has been the accessories, the belt system, you know, all the plumbing up here and all of that packaging. This cross member, this is the 3rd version of this cross member. Now, that doesn't mean that we built 3 different ones, but we had to modify this thing. There was some warpage as far as the bosses and the alignment, and the alignment of these pulleys is so crucial that we can't have anything be offset or else they'll throw the belt. Other things to note in here, so this reservoir is just floating, and it actually, let me show you. So there's saddles here for the reservoir. There's a cross member here that's your actual structural cross member. This guy really just facilitates the AC compressor and the alternator, which are super easy swaps and super easy to service. But you can tell now there is a pressure relief valve for the power steering. There is a fuel pressure gauge here, fuel pressure regulator, my bad. And then there's an overflow. The other stuff to note now is your water lines. These kind of have this snaky thing going on through here, and really that's just optimized for being able to take your belt on and off without having to, like, the way you shut the bed on that is if you have your water lines constructed, but they go in through some of your belt system, your serpentine, and then you literally have to pop a line off to change your belt. So fill cap higher than the radiator. We'll just have like an overflow. We'll have that guy over there going back into the overflow. Power steering reservoir with filter, that's already been there. It's been there for a while. You can see the servo, the steering servos under here. And all of the steerings, like from steering wheel to tie rods, has been solidified and done. So this is a big accomplishment. This whole entire front end here, it looks busy because it is busy. It's, you know, like I said, this thing is smaller than a Ranger for sure. And it's packaged that way. Your LS is at least 20 inches further back than a stock motor would be. And then your shocks are in line here. So leading into the shocks, kind of get a bearing on the steering shaft popping out of the firewall here and going to the servo. But everything, you know, all the plumbing's gonna be pretty tight. Now, that's tricky a lot of the time with AN fittings because there's not a lot of movement in them when you have really short runs. So we've kind of tried to lay stuff out, and we have a lot of mock-up fittings, like this 90. Another one sitting here where we'll just put mock-up fittings on the whole section we want to run to make sure it like makes sense and we can get fittings on. because they also are like sensitive. They don't want to be over tightened. They don't want to get any kind of nicks in them, and they also need to be going on perfectly square. The bypass and the coilover, we upgraded, did a change order on this whole thing. So this is a 4-inch bypass and a 3-inch coilover that live in here. They're not in here. Our next update, I'll show it with all the suspension on it. The arms are down here, and they've had to be clearanced for the rod ends of the bypass and the coilover, meaning that we had to pretty much scrape out chunks of the lower arm and then re-box in and re-gusset and then re-weld. Another unique feature here is the reservoir tree. So this is our tree that holds both reservoirs for the bypass and the coilover per side. And with that, like, it's not on. I'm just gonna save it for you guys because it's gonna be like, I don't want to interrupt the process of this whole thing to put that stuff on. But once we go back for the second update here, or the following update, I'll show you bypass, coilover, and the reservoirs on. But it's really cool because the reservoir tree is just different thinking, where it's like usually you're tied to putting a reservoir, put it on the chassis, put it where it goes here, put it where it goes here, instead of like thinking about just floating them where they need to be for efficiency and serviceability and packaging. So that's what we have here now. Like both reservoirs on each side, they're exactly in the same spot, so there's a lot of good symmetry. And at ride height, where the shock angle is at ride height is exactly where the reservoirs are. So most of the time the car will live at ride height, and it'll just look like cylinders, bypass, coilover, and then reservoir, and they're all chucked in the same spot. Something else to note, you can kind of see the water lines rolling through here, a little tab in there to hold this thing secure. And everything is tightly packaged, and then you have this intake. Now this is another gamble where you don't want to be feeding hot air from the fan into the intake, and I think what we'll need to do is just kind of shroud that off. There'll be plenty of air coming from the wheel turning and from the front of the car, especially the underside. But this portion, like, I think we just want to have a shroud on some of that fan there. That can just dump off and protect it, and it doesn't have to be like completely sealed or enclosed, but just something very simple as a shield, so we're not diluting the fresh, cooler air going into the motor with what is being exhausted out of the radiator. The whole entire motor itself is prepped, ready. We have some components like injectors, spark plugs, spark plug wires, fuel rails, all that stuff on order that needs to come in for wiring, at least for startup. But you can see again just how tight everything is in here. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a place to live. The throttle cable is also in. That was something that we didn't have done yet. So again, these are just like smaller details, but they're all very important things that needed to happen. Another one is the AC air dryer, just in a very simple spot with a nice stainless bracket. That's going to run your air conditioner. I don't know if I mentioned, but there's the AC condenser is also back in here. So we will have an air conditioner unit. I kind of joke with people, I think that this thing will be lukewarm. It'll never be cool, but it won't be really hot, so it's still a win. Pretty sure by this time you guys will know about these. This is the Terra Crew PRP Death Grip steering wheel. That is like an exclusive the guys got going for Terra Crew. James's truck is obviously going to be the first one with it, so that thing's on there. But really, I was just going to show you some routing. Like, this is our throttle pedal, throttle cable, all done. We are going to redo the access panels in here. I've kind of done enough research with heat dispersion that we want to run them out of a different material instead of just using steel. So at least the steel ones can provide a template for us to do so. We did mount all the remaining electronics on the other side, so I'm going to get to that too. This thing, just from the start, we obviously, I don't know if you guys remember, but there's that big like display cowl here There was Fab Diaries on how we built that thing, and now it's wrapped in Alcantara and stitched. That's off just for obvious reasons of building on this thing. But we really wanted to have this wide open. We didn't want to have like a full dash in here or a bunch of shapes and more enclosure, because the cab of this thing is already very small. Like, it doesn't look that bad right now, but when there's seats in here, it fills up, and it's very narrow and it's just compact, and it's not terrible when you're in it, but it's something where you definitely don't need more stuff like closing the area off. So I always had that intention with like any of the passenger controls, that they can just be kind of floating, and that's what we have. So like Holley ECU is down there. It's very serviceable, something you can just plug in really quick with a tuner. The Kenwood radio, the race radio, that's kind of nestled up in there. That's something you really don't have to use that often. Either just turn it on, or it turns on with the car and you just have it on one channel, and then you have your intercom and your headset stuff from PCI. So it's kind of just a nice integrated tab, and this is as simple as it's going to be. Like, there's not going to be any more than that. You'll have your Switch Pro up there, and then you'll have just what you need here, handbrake, and then the only situation here that's changed is, instead of having the fire bottle here like we were, there's going to be a AC system in between the back seats, and the fire bottles are actually going to be mounted on the exterior of the car, nestled in before the coilover. So they'll live outside, but the rule of thumb with a fire bottle is you want to have 3 nozzles per bottle. So we're going to run 2 bottles and 6 nozzles in this whole thing. One other issue when we started doing the plumbing, and I don't think we've briefed about the plumbing before, but we've already ordered everything. So Alex and I kind of did a pre-run from front to back of the truck and looked at what fittings we'll need, what sizes, where things are going to go to hardline, where are things going to be bulkheaded, and just did that whole entire run through on this thing front to back with every single system. So steering, fuel, trans, oil, and got it super dialed. So that stuff's already done. It's already paid for. It's at Orm Brothers for us to pick up. One thing we noticed is the trans tunnel is so tight that the fitting to get to one of the trans lines for the cooler line, it was incredibly like packaged, like the sheet metal was super tight to it, so you wouldn't be able to get to it. So what we have here is, this is a new removable access panel that we added, and that enables you to go in there and put your 90 on there on the trans and service that thing. You do have to take the seat out here to get to that. It is what it is. But that's something we needed to address. So it's like, really a lot of this is just simply getting all the small stuff dialed. So this is completely blown apart. A lot of that list consisted, like, the change order on the shocks turned into a thing, because you're going from a 3-inch bypass to a 4.5-inch bypass, a 2.5-inch coilover to a 3-inch coilover, and things changed by inches on that. So it just it compounded into clearancing things. You know, like if you watch the Bronco episode, at one point, you know, I think a lot of episodes talking about shock mounts and things needing to swing. The bypasses, like, there's notches in this tube that you can't see, where it's kind of like an orange peel of a shape in there where it's notched out. The trailing arms had to be revised, drilled out for 5/8, which they should be no matter what. New limit strap tabs, bigger bump stop, old bump stop cans cut out. So this is just very crude and blown apart, and next update we will have all of this on and everything intact, everything, all the big shocks on for you guys to see. The winch has its own place here that's tabbed. It's just not finaled. So I want to really press on that stuff next episode, like have all the landing gear on, kind of show you guys all the modifications with that, show you the new shock package. I also think we'll probably be into plumbing at that point. So thanks for watching this thing. This has been a huge, awesome journey. I think for James, it's just more exciting to have it done for him. Bedsides. I don't know how we were going to cover Mario shaping those. There is footage of that, like of all the clay work, and I know any of you who have followed like my Instagram, there's been some of that. I think even the last update, we showed the bedside. So that is at Fiberworks. That's also stuff we're gonna go cover and show the process on making the clay. It's now digitized. So let's go back a couple steps. The clay fenders got scanned, and then they got digitized, and then they got cleaned up digitally, and that file was sent to Jason at Fiberworks. And now they are down there processing that and milling that stuff out and turning that into a reproducible fender. So it's not just a one-off. It's something that if you have you know, a gardener truck like this, you can put those on it, or if these do tail slaps, we can get new ones put on. So thank you guys for following along with this thing. If you have comments or questions on anything in the front or anything that stands out, let us know. I'm always willing to listen to you guys. So if you just comment below, let us know. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day.